anniversary tour of the Battle of Brandy Station. I should say the battlefield of Brandy Station. This battlefield extends about 10 miles that way, about another 10 miles that way. You could probably take the National Park of Gettysburg and the National Park of Antietam, drop them inside that 10 by 10 box, and still have room left over. That should tell you how large and how broad this battle is. There's lots of stories here. Unfortunately, we can't cover every single corner of this battlefield today. It just would be impossible logistically. What we are going to do is take you to some places on this battlefield that you normally wouldn't go to. Feel free to come back later and visit the easier to access sites by all means, but we want to emphasize today the places that you normally would not get to. As you look around this battlefield, you're going to see it's preserved to some degree. Some of the roads that you are going to travel across, some of the fields you're going to cross over, are as they are, as close to as they were at the time of the battle. However, this is not a pristine, manicured battlefield, as you can hear with the planes taking off all the time. There are no trails nicely paved on this battlefield. So one note of caution, please stay with the group. Some of these areas that we're going across are private property. Let's please respect that. A few other administrative notes. If you have a cell phone, please put it on silent or stun or otherwise make it inert. We do not wish to disturb the rest of the group as you're being paged. Again, please stay with the group as we move. Try to move together as we move from parking area to parking area. Try to stay in line as closely tucked up as possible. Be mindful of the critters that are out here. Check yourselves, make sure you're not taking any of them home. We want to keep the critters that are here on the Brandy Station battlefield here on the Brandy Station battlefield. Also, even though it's a kind of overcast day, don't let that fool you. Please drink water. You don't want anyone falling out on the march. With that said, let me introduce, is Cecil back up yet? I don't think he's made in. We'll get Cecil in just a minute, but let me turn you over to our tour lead, Bud Hall.
Folks, good morning, and as Craig said, welcome to the Brandy Station battlefield. I'm going to be joined today by two other excellent historians, and others will kick in as the day goes along. There are among you out here some outstanding historians, left and right, some outstanding cavalry historians, and I'm going to be calling on these fellas today. We're going to put them on the spot, but the top cavalry historian on the battles of Aldie, Middleburg, and Upperville, Bob O'Neill, is with us back here. I'm going to be calling on Bob O'Neill later. Those were the cavalry battles that followed the Battle of Brandy Station, June 9th, 1863. But my fellow historians and guides today, Eric Wittenberg is right here, no shrinking violet, and a good friend of many years, an outstanding historian, great cavalry writer, and many of you have seen his blogs, The Rantings of a Cavalry Historian. Michael Block. Michael Block is a historian right here in and around Culpeper. He's an authority on this battle and an authority on the winter encampment of the Army of the Potomac in 1863-1864. We're going to be talking throughout the day about that encampment because it occurred exactly on this battlefield, so we cannot not speak about the battle. As you know, Eric has written a fine book about the Battle of Brandy Station as well. My name is Clark B. Hall, and know many of you, and it's good to see you again. I've been out here on this battlefield seems like most of my life. In the mid-'80s, arrived here, and we initiated a preservation effort here. And I want to talk a little bit about the stories that Craig alluded to. These are interrelated stories. First of all, there's the history, the strategy of the Pennsylvania campaign. We're going to be talking about that here. There is next the tactical analysis of the Battle of Brandy Station. This is, as Craig has indicated, an extremely big battlefield from Beverly's Ford, 8 miles south, to Kelly's Ford, the two most heavily used fords in the entire Piedmont of Northern Virginia during the Civil War, the two most heavily used fords by cavalry throughout the Civil War. all the way from Kelly's Ford, from here, 8 miles. 8 miles to Stevensburg, 6 miles to Brandy Station from Stevensburg. Stevensburg is in that direction, little hamlet. An important phase of this battle will occur there. We'll be there later today. From Stevensburg, it's 6 miles to Brandy Station. Brandy Station, all the way over to Freeman's Ford. That's 9 miles. And then down again to Beverly's Ford. Huge circle. All of this, and cavalry, as you know, by definition, is mobile. And all of this ground was covered by cavalry during the Battle of Brandy Station. Now, the other stories, aside from the strategic analysis of the Pennsylvania campaign and the tactical assessment of the Battle of Brandy Station, the third story you're going to be hearing about today in spades is preservation of this battlefield. Because, let me give you an example about the significance, the lasting importance of preservation. When you save a battlefield, you save a place where young Americans fought and died. And in large measure, I want to emphasize this, and in large measure, they're still buried here. There's this myth that after the war, some people came, you understand, after the war, people were starving, people had to make a living, they didn't have time to go out and dig up soldiers that were killed during the war. There were thousands of soldiers killed in Culpeper County during the war. Thousands. The Battle of Cedar Mountain took place here. The Battle of Freeman's Ford took place. The Battle of Morton's Ford took place. Brandy Station, Kelly's Ford. Cavalry battles in the fall of 1863. Most of those soldiers are still buried out here on the battlefield. This is one grand hallowed cemetery. So that's part of the reason why we save these. We're saving the final resting place of young men who gave their lives for their country. Now, this part of the battlefield here, we control about 2,000 acres. And when I say we, we're talking about the Civil War Trust. Many of you are members. Many of you are members of the trust. If you're not, you should be. If you're not, you should be. Civil War Trust, we control about 2,000 acres here. Now this right here, you're going to hear a representation of the tactical analysis of Brandy Station here on a saved battlefield. Right over there is the Culpeper County Airport, built in the early 60s. I went back and looked at the newspaper, the archives in the 1960s, and there's not one letter to the editor. There's not one opposition voice speaking against that airport. Well, let me tell you something, folks, as we're going to learn in just a second. When the Confederates came slashing down Beverly's Ford Road, Tom Devin's division moved out across that left of the road, east of the road, north. North is in this direction, so I'll be referring to north, obviously northeast in this direction. So Tom Devin would fight Wade Hampton over on that side of the road. That property is lost to history. Runways lie over the graves of young soldiers from the 9th New York Cavalry, the 3rd Indiana Cavalry, the 3rd West Virginia Cavalry, Companies A and C, all out in there. Runways rest over their graves. That is lost to history. So you can't interpret that, can you? You can't interpret that. You can't go over and pay respect because it is lost. I've written a letter to Culpeper County, a couple of letters actually about this over the years, and I've said, you know what? We lost that because you took it, and you developed it. This over here, however, is ours. Don't come on this side of the road. You know, we don't, you know, we want to work with people, but this over here is hallowed ground. We can't interpret this. We can't, and we will. We can pay honor to soldiers who fought and died here because this ground is protected. This farmer works for us. This lease farmer works for us. So if we don't like what he's doing, we'll get a new farmer. But this property was farmed prior to the war. It was farmed right after the war. We believe it's appropriate that it continue to be farmed today. So those are the stories that you're going to hear here throughout the day. Now, let's move forward to strategy for a second. The strategic overview of the Pennsylvania campaign. Robert E. Lee, commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, had scored 2 successive and stunning victories. December of 1862, Fredericksburg, May of 1863 at Chancellorsville. And let me sort of read to you what he said about those victories. Those were, to be certain, conclusive victories tactically. But he was visited right after the Battle of Chancellorsville by a representative of President Davis. President Davis was trying to assess what Robert E. Lee thought about things. So he sends Major Seddon, the brother of the Secretary of War. And here's what General Lee says to Major Seddon in his tent, where General Lee is camped off of Mine Road in Fredericksburg. General Lee says to him, at Fredericksburg, to Major Seddon, this is Lee talking, at Fredericksburg we gained a battle, inflicting very severe loss on the enemy and materiel. Our people, the citizenry of the Confederacy, were greatly elated. I was much depressed. We had really accomplished nothing. We had not gained a foot of ground, and I knew the enemy could easily replace the men he lost, and the loss of material was, if anything, rather beneficial to him, as it gave him an opportunity to contractors to make money. You think that still happens today? At Chancellorsville, we gained another victory, Robert E. Lee. Our people were wild with delight. I, on the contrary, was more depressed than after Fredericksburg. Our loss was severe, and again we had gained not an inch of ground, and the enemy could not be pursued. Then he gets down to the heart of the matter. This is the thinking of a truly great general in command. I considered the problem in every possible phase, and to my mind, it resolved itself into the choice of one of two things. Either to retire on Richmond, which was a millstone, draining the Army of Northern Virginia because of the fear that Richmond would be taken. Politicians in Richmond were so concerned. It was a millstone dragging the Army of Northern Virginia down south. He said, I would either retire to Richmond and stand a siege, which must ultimately have resulted in surrender, or to invade Pennsylvania. I chose the latter. He chose the latter. In other words, this is one strategic roll of the dice right here. I'm going to take my army to Pennsylvania. I'm going to cross the Shenandoah River into the Shenandoah Valley, and I'm going to move northward, and I'm going to take on occasion, we wheel out a service-to-air missile and take one of these down. But he looks to be on our side. So, General Lee was concerned that he didn't have enough food to feed his army. So getting his army northward into the fields of Maryland and Pennsylvania appealed to him. Plus, it'd give Virginia a rest. So this was the design. He went down to Richmond. He told President Davis what he's going to do. Cabinet voted. The army was on its way. Well, what's the army? Now, General Lee had to pull back his army from Fredericksburg, where he was, he entrenched at Fredericksburg, where he was before the Battle of Fredericksburg in December of 1862. So, to prepare for this campaign, to prepare for his movement to Pennsylvania, in mid-May 1863, I'm not saying in late May 1863, in mid-May 1863, he's already thinking, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to draw the Federals away from Brooks Station and away from Falmouth. I'm going to draw them away. I'm going to go northward, and I'm going to get the Army of the Potomac out in the open where I can defeat them once and for all. Not hung around the Chancellorsville defenses, which had often are the Centerville defenses. He wanted to get them away from Washington, get them away from Falmouth, send them north so he could get them in the open and defeat them once and for all. So there's a lot of reasons for that. But to prepare for this grand movement northward, he had to secretly extract a portion of his army, leaving A.P. Hill in place in Fredericksburg. He pulls Ewell out of the trenches. Longstreet is coming up from Suffolk. They arrive in Culpeper County in early June 1863. June 5th, June 6th, June 7th, June 8th, they arrive in Culpeper County. Lee himself will arrive June 7th of 1863. Well, in mid-May, he had ordered his cavalry here. He had ordered his cavalry right into Culpeper County. Why? Why did he bring his cavalry out of Orange County across the Rapidan and put them here? He brought them here because cavalry screens the infantry as it moves northward. Cavalry leads the infantry and artillery as it moves northward. Cavalry collects intelligence of the enemy. So that is why Jeb Stuart and his cavalry division are here in late May, May 20th, 1863. So they're already here. 5 brigades of Confederate cavalry, the finest light cavalry on the face of the earth. Jeb Stuart's cavalry division, about 10,000 men, are right here, camped in these fields around you today. So as Stuart conducts a review on behalf of General Lee, June 8th, 1863, back here a couple of miles at Inlet Station, June 8th, his cavalry has got orders the next morning to get up, June 8th, and head in that direction. Dick Ewell's corps is already over in Chestnut Fork, about 10 miles in that direction. Longstreet is back here at Pony Mountain. Jeb Stuart is to pick up his cavalry division and head in that direction. head north across the Rappahannock and the Hazel River to be on the right flank of the army as it heads to the Shenandoah Valley. Now, in this area where we're standing today was the very largest Confederate cavalry brigade, and it was commanded by Grumble Jones, William E. Grumble Jones. If there's one man that I would not want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning out of his bed and make him mad at me, it would be Grumble Jones. So the Federals had the very bad misfortune of coming out and attacking Grumble Jones. Let me place the other brigades for you. This is Grumble Jones' brigade. Down here protecting Kelly's Ford, and he will make a miserable failure of it, is Beverly Robertson. Beverly Robertson's brigade, small brigade, the 4th and 5th North Carolina Cavalry Regiments. Tom Munford's brigade, 1st, 2nd, 4th Virginia Cavalry Regiments, 5th Virginia Cavalry Regiment. They're back at Oatshade Church, but with the 4th Virginia Cavalry detached. They had been up protecting the left of A.P. Hill. They're just now returning. They will come into this battle at Stevensburg. So at Oakshade Church, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Virginia Cavalry Regiments, and at Freeman's Ford on Picket is the 5th Virginia Cavalry. That's Tom Munford's brigade. Fitzlee's brigade, actually, Fitzlee is ailing right now from inflammatory rheumatism. The next brigade is Wade Hampton. Wade Hampton is south of Brandy Station, between Brandy Station and Stevensburg. He's got some fine cavalry regiments down there. We'll learn more about them today. Rooney Lee's brigade, and you're going to hear a lot about Rooney Lee today. I've always liked this description of Rooney Lee, written by one of his staff officers. He said he was 6'4" or 6'5" and weighed not an ounce less than 300 pounds. And he mounted on his warhorse Frantic. The two of them were the largest establishment I've ever seen. Now, Rooney Lee will fight a battle today, and you're going to hear a lot about it. General Lee's middle son had gone to Harvard for a couple of years. He wasn't cut out for the Harvard crowd. Resigned from Harvard, much to his father's chagrin, and he went west in the Mormon Wars, and he went west and was a cavalry officer pre-war before the secession of Virginia. So, Rooney Lee's brigade, Grumble Jones' brigade, Wade Hampton's brigade, Fitzlee's brigade. We've got them all covered in a big concentric circle. And where is the center of this circle? Where is the center? Fleetwood Hill. right behind us. That's where Stewart is camped. You're going to hear a lot about Fleetwood Hill today. Okay, we got the Confederates put in place the night of June 8, 1863. On the morning of June 9th, they are to pick up and head north. Those are the orders. Those orders were never written out, but those orders were transmitted from General Lee to General Stewart to his brigade commanders, to his staff. So the next morning, now, you have the delicious irony of all the cavalry of the Army of Northern Virginia, 10,000 troopers, 500 horse artillerymen moving towards the river. And on the other side of the river, all of the cavalry of the Army of the Potomac is moving to the river. And the river down here at Beverly's Ford is about 30 yards wide. Okay, about 30 yards wide. It's right now, if you leaped into it, it would take you all the way to Fredericksburg. But right now, it's higher than it is normally. Normally it's 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep. You can walk across it at any time. So the cavalry of the Army of the Potomac, the Cavalry Corps, commanded by Brigadier General Alfred Pleasanton, they have heard action over here. They've heard guns in the background. They know Confederate cavalry is here, but this is important, folks. This is an important distinction. They do not know Confederate infantry is here in 2 corps, Ewell and Longstreet. They do not know that. They will not know that by the end of this day, by the way. They will suspicion that, but they don't know it. So, John Buford, easily, he's in your packet, easily the largest, the best cavalry officer in the Army of the Potomac, and I'm going to ask Eric when we get up on Buford's Knoll to talk about John Buford.